How's it going, EXO fans? My name is Fabio Suave, and yesterday I finished The Idol, and I have to say I was left wanting just a little bit more of a proper resolution. After sitting on my thoughts for the show for a good portion of last afternoon, I decided to take to Reddit to kind of outline some of the things that I thought would have made the show better, as well as things that either just didn't make sense to me or I didn't like at all. And that actually garnered a lot of attention on the Weekend subreddit, so I decided to just take these points and kind of put them in video format for easier digestion for anybody that's interested. I know that Moist Critical already did a review on the finale of The Idol, titling the video something like "This horrible show is finally over," and we all know what Moist Critical has to say about a lot of stuff. Honestly, this is the silliest, most stinky, poopy show to ever exist. I honestly don't even know why Sam Levinson decided to make this piece of trash. Probably because he just wanted to see Lily Rose Depp's little teeny tiny jubblies once per episode. But as somebody who has loved The Weeknd for a decade, I've got EXO tatted on my chest, and someone who has also spent a year in film school, just a year because it was expensive. Shout out Columbia College Hollywood. I just want to give you guys some of my thoughts. If I could sum up The Idol into one word, it would be rushed. It is obvious that the whole show was reshot. They burned their budget in making a show that they didn't like, so when they had that creative overhaul with Sam Levinson taking the reins as the director, it didn't leave them much room to do a lot with the story they were trying to tell. But even with what we have, it's really hard to tell what story that is that they wanted us to see. Breaking this video up into two parts: things that I think should have happened, or things that I at least would have liked to have seen, and things that I just didn't like. Here are some things that I think should have happened. It should have taken more time for Tedros to actually have full control of Jocelyn. I understand that he's been obsessed with her and manifesting on this, and he's an emotional manipulator that's been studying her, that has every tool at his disposal to, turn her to his side and stuff like that, but it just felt way too easy and simple the way that it played out, all because they met at a club and then got frisky at the club, and then next thing you know, Jocelyn's inviting him over because he piqued her interest or something like that. Just before Tedros' influence, it just makes Jocelyn as a character look like someone who had zero boundaries and zero respect for themselves. And I get that Jocelyn is coming down from a big mental breakdown that was partially due to the loss of her mother and some kind of misdirection with her career. But just the fact that Jocelyn, as just a regular woman, allowed a weirdo like Tedros to so quickly enter into her life and then flip it upside down, just doesn't... We needed to see way more of this happening little by little in order for that to not feel like such a huge change. Nikki secretly being indebted to Tedros was fantastic. The additional pressure of a rising starlet that already has a better public image than Jocelyn because she's in the can right now, who used to be her best dancer and is secretly under Tedros' thumb, is incredible. That is one of the main antagonists of the show. They could have done something really great with her character if we had more episodes to dive into that. Dyanne's character could have been so much bigger, and of course, since Jennie is arguably one of the biggest K-pop idols, I'm sure her millions and millions of fans would have enjoyed seeing more of her on the show too, because I understand that a lot of K-pop stans gave the show a chance just as a baseline of Jennie being attached, But Dyanne could have been the anti-Jocelyn. And there could have even been a Prince and Rick James style feud going on between Jocelyn and Dyanne, where Dyanne is opening for Jocelyn but also upstaging her, arguably putting on a better performance than her before the main star is even ready to go on. And that would cause such a conflict and tension between the two stars on the show, to a point where they're not only giving it their all to upstage one another, but even resulting in sabotage to make sure that one's show can't be as good as the other, whether it's a technical foul or like, you know, like real foul play, like pulling like a Tanya and like, you know, hurting somebody. And after all of that, it would have been especially satisfying to see Jocelyn finally prevail, but we don't get that because 5 episodes. I like the way that Xander and Chloe essentially switch sides. Xander gave his story about how Jocelyn's mother inhibited his career in order for Jocelyn herself to shine, and Chloe is just a sweet little 18-year-old baby who's only here for the fame and probably does have a good, you know, moral understanding deep down that Tedros is a monster. It still doesn't make sense to me how Xander switches over to the Tedros troop, because me personally, I don't think I would be loyal to the guy that shot collars me until I piss myself. But I do appreciate that Tedros is the one to look at Xander and say, hey, you need to go get what was taken from you. And that motivation, you know, I think helped get Xander's character out of a very complacent spot where he's just like, oh no, like my voice is shot, like I fried my vocal cords, even though he sung perfectly in the shower. I think he was, you know, just kind of lying to himself to avoid the air of failure, to like, you know, not even giving himself the chance to disappoint himself. But there still could have been so much more fighting over each respective party trying to get their pawn back. Tedros wants Chloe back, Jocelyn wants Xander back on her side. Like, they've got bargaining chips in their hands right here, and at the end of it all, Jocelyn is just like, fuck it. Well, I mean, I know that you just helped Tedros frame my ex for rape the night that he came over, but yeah, you'll open for me, that's cool. Okay. The moment where all of the managers are having their own separate conversations in the middle of that showcase of episode 5 is brilliant, because you've got Chaim and Destiny over here talking about like, oh my god, all of these talented kids, we're gonna take the whole lot, and Nikki's over here talking to Tedros like, look, I know that this is you, I know that Jocelyn is incapable of putting this sort of thing together. What you've got is a brilliant eye for talent, and I want to help you take these kids to the top. It fucking sucks that went nowhere after that. That was fantastic. That could have caused a civil war among Jocelyn's managerial team that could have ultimately put her entire career in jeopardy. Proceeding down that plot line where Nikki actually teams with Tedros and Chaim and Nikki have to like do their best for damage control and prevent this from happening, it could have been amazing. That could have put the tour in jeopardy. That could have like whatever. All of a sudden in episode 5, Jocelyn is the badass and she's the one that's making Tedros her bitch. And she's basically relieving Tedros of all of his talent. Like, fuck you, I'm taking this for myself. They're opening for me, not you. So aside from that, once it becomes clear to Tedros and Nikki that she can't be tamed, that's the part where Nikki says, hey, fuck her, let's take what you've got. Let's make them big. You know, I've already got Dyanne. I didn't even know that she was one of yours. We signed her organically. I didn't know that you cultivated that. Let's go make millions, and then let's go find more, you know, vulnerable, talented souls on the streets and put them through the Tedros training. So not only do you have an adversary in the form of like an opposition to Jocelyn and her career, but then you have this moral fork in the road where there's almost some kind of sense of duty to prevent Tedros from finding more talent this way, the way that he's been manipulating and abusing people to unlock their potential. He'll keep doing it if it's making him money. And Nikki, it's obvious that she doesn't care. She's only in this for the money based on the fact that she turned her back on Jocelyn to give Dyanne World-Class Sinner as a debut single. So in my opinion, I think that would have been one of the best things to happen to the show, you know, next to Dyanne actually being a formidable adversary, because it's obvious that Chaim and Destiny, especially Destiny, cares because she took a liking to Chloe. And I know that she wouldn't want anybody to go through what Chloe and Isaac did under the hands of Tedros. So again, the moral obligation to just stop Tedros, not only from hurting Jocelyn, but from growing to a point where he hurts others, like with Nikki under new management, would be a huge, it's like saving the world almost. We officially become superheroes if we stop Tedros from hurting other people. And Nikki herself could have done so much more to play more into an evil stepmother role. You know what I'm talking about? Being there for Jocelyn all along the way, but behind closed doors, she's working with Tedros to keep her in check and making the moves that he wants to make. So now he basically really is her manager by proxy. And then Nikki starts making all of these questionable decisions on his behalf. And the team is like, what the fuck? And that's when, the suspicion arises that something is amiss. And then they learn, oh, Nikki's with Tedros. And that's when shit hits the fan and we've got to make some drastic changes. We hear nearly every single episode how horrible Jocelyn's mother is. We never see her. One of the biggest things that would have helped logically establish and more accurately convey what Jocelyn has been through is flashbacks to her mother and the abuse that she suffered. Because all we do is hear about it. How much sympathy can you have for someone just hearing something? To see it and experience it through their eyes is what makes us as the viewer feel these things. You hear about somebody died, somebody's abused, you're like, oh, that's sad, that sucks. You see it happen, you're like, oh my God, you poor thing, And there is zero mention of a father. Where is the father? That has to play a role in something too. For all of this to be just on mommy is just a complete, point of ignorance in the writing. Everybody has two parents, whether you like it or not, and both of them have a very big effect on you as a child. Of course, I would have liked to have seen flashbacks of Jocelyn's mother and the kind of torment that's been described, but I also wouldn't mind if the show took a little bit more of a psychological route and Jocelyn would see delusions of her mother in times of crisis. Like when she was breaking down at the music video set and she was calling out for her mother among the stage lights and she couldn't see. How fucked up would it have been if she saw her mother among the stage lights and then heard her you're doing amazing, sweetie, echoing fucking, hang on a minute. You're doing amazing, sweetie. Keep going. Keep going for mommy, or else we'll get the brush. Return the brush, or suffer my curse. But yeah, Jocelyn's mother, physically showing up every now and again would have been a great symbol and allegory for the trauma that Jocelyn cannot let go of. And with the flashbacks, we could have seen what Jocelyn's mother did to Jocelyn, what she did to Xander, just overall establish how horrible of a person she really was and why she did what she did. Because if you're gonna be a bad person, there has to be some kind of logical motive. Nobody's just inherently a dick for no reason. You've just gotta be a miserable piece of shit if that were to be the case. So we need to see, was Jocelyn's mother a miserable piece of shit up until she died from cancer? Or was she doing something to protect Jocelyn somehow by hurting her directly? Questions unanswered that will remain unanswered because we never saw, because 5 episodes. And one of the last things that I would have liked to have seen in the show itself was murder. Somebody needed to die. The fact that Tedros is this ruthless cutthroat, and the music industry is literally a cutthroat business, When Destiny suggested, I think we should kill this motherfucker, I was like, yeah, yes, we should kill that motherfucker. And nothing came of that. Nothing came of that. I got excited for nothing. They should have killed Tedros. We'll get to that in a minute. But if Tedros is going to be this, this ruthless, manipulative dog that, pimps out all of these talented people, some heads should have been split at some point for sure. For disobeying him, for going against him, for this, that, the other, blah, 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 boom, boom. All it would have taken was for Tedros to say the word, give the look. And then his boy Mitch, the bald guy that they always show with the tattoo on the back of his head, that guy did nothing. That character was there for no reason because he could have been the hitman. You know what I mean? That's the dude that gets his hands dirty so Tedros stays safe. In the last episode, when Jocelyn is pep talking all of Tedros' talent and all he can do is gripe behind her oh yeah, you're calling the shots now, this is your show now. And she just turns around and is shut the fuck up. Why are you still here? It just proves that Tedros is all talk. it makes you wonder, in all of this time, through all of this abuse and manipulation, why has nobody ever thought to just go, hey, fuck you, and then not do what Tedros is asking? Jocelyn just proved that nothing happens. He's a bitch. And maybe we should have had that hostage situation like Tedros threatened. Like, you know how she's like, I want you to get the fuck out. And he's like, I'm gonna hold you, I'm not leaving. And then she's like, I'll call the cops, I'll hold you hostage, they'll kill you, I'll kill you first, bitch. Should have just happened instead of talking about it. I don't know. Again, it's like the same thing with I think we should kill this motherfucker. I don't know why they would say that and tease us with the idea and then it doesn't happen. I guess looking back on Nikki signing Dyanne as the anti-Jocelyn and then doing nothing with that as well, I think that's the consistent theme of this show. It's teasing us with things that should have happened. It's a whole lot of talk and not a lot of action. But back on the topic of death, I think it would have been really shocking and twisting for the plot if they killed Leia. Because Leia is not only like the least deserving of an untimely death of anyone in the show, she's just Jocelyn's best friend and live-in assistant, wants the best for her. She's also the only one that sees through what Tedros is really doing. For her to get whacked would have been like a pivotal point in the show for a multitude of reasons. Establishing Tedros's power and control, further, lessening the hope that Jocelyn has to get out of here if there's not that bug in her ear saying, like, this guy's bad, I don't like him, Joss, I don't think you understand what he's doing to you. You just imagine one morning, like it always happens, somebody flings open the blinds on Jocelyn sleeping, and she's like, rise and shine, wakey wakey. She's like in a delusion because she just woke up, the sun is bright in her eyes. As soon as her eyes adjust, the camera, of course, because we're seeing this through her eyes, as soon as the camera adjusts into focus to see who's saying good morning, we realize it's not Leia. And then Jocelyn's like, where's Leia? And the assistant is like, oh, well, we had to let her go because she couldn't handle the workload that we were giving her, and she decided that she was holding you back as an artist, and so as a friend to you, she decided that it would be best if you guys part ways. And Jocelyn is like, what? Huh? And she didn't even say goodbye. Tedros, is this true? And Tedros is like, I tried to talk her into staying, but she said that this was for the best. I'm sorry, Joss. She gives you all of her love, though. But come on, you gotta get up. Ryan Seacrest will be here at 11. And then she just goes with it because she's a busy girl with making a lot of changes, and everything that she's involved in doesn't make sense right now. So why further question why Leia would just up and leave? Oh, but what would have really helped further solidify the believability in that is if Leia and Jocelyn had a growing conflict between themselves, as Leia stands firm in her stance on Tedros, as Jocelyn dives further into the rabbit hole of believing his rhetoric and what he has to say and what he's doing. The love for Tedros and the disagreement with Leia would cause a tear that would also cause her to not, fully question that decision on, did she really leave or did something happen? She'll just be like, whatever, I guess this is for the best, and go about her life, and nobody would find Leia again until much, much later when it's far too late and Tedros has already set all of his traps in place. I also think that Nikki should have died. I think that with what we've already established with her and her moral compass, with only being here for the money, the greed, whatever, turning her back on Jocelyn, signing Dyanne, what could have happened with going the Tedros route, what I previously described. In one of the final scenes, all of the managers are laughing amongst themselves about how Tedros is such a fucking idiot, how he's a laughingstock now, while he's simultaneously walking into the stadium. I thought that Nikki's head was gonna get blown clean the fuck off, like mid-laughing fit. That would have been a shock to me and everybody. I know, maybe I've just watched too much of The Sopranos or some shit, or The Walking Dead, where people just fucking get for no reason, whatever. But it would have been great, and it would have been another kind of like satisfaction to justice, but only if we go that route where she really does pair with Tedros and try to recruit more people to hurt for him. But that would have been nice to see. And of course, ultimately, Tedros himself would need to die at some kind of death. It's so weird that Tedros did not die, because The Weeknd himself is so akin to killing himself in so many of his projects. There are a handful of music videos where he meets his own demise. I don't know what he's got going on with this fraternization of his own death, but for it to not happen to Tedros feels like a huge missed note. And I don't know what the writers are doing with this, but I don't think they're gonna have a chance to kill him in a second season, because there might not be a second season. The show was the most watched on HBO through this whole endeavor, but critically it has been dragged through the mud, and I, as an EXO fan myself, I can't defend it either. I don't think it was a good show. We'll get more into like my final thoughts on this in a little bit, but now we get into the stuff that I just don't like. So I'll address the elephant in the room. The kinky sex stuff came out of the gate way too quickly to make any sense. It is like an astronomical coincidence that Tedros just knew Jocelyn was kinky. Her habit of autoerotic asphyxiation, like, how do you know? Like, I don't know, maybe, I'm not saying that it's me, maybe some people out there can look at a girl and be like, yeah, you like to be choked. But Tedros would have had to have some kind of trauma chart that like correlates like different traumatic experiences with like sexual behavior. Like, yeah, so Jocelyn has mommy issues, so that means she is into, let's see here, bondage, pain play, CNC, free use, and exhibitionism. Okay, I can use that to my advantage. Let's see, I'll invite her to the club. Like, you see how that doesn't make sense? It happened way too quickly. They did not get to know each other, and they were in love and living together, and the whole entourage was moved into the mansion in like a week, it feels like. Speaking of timing, but the first couple episodes, they were pretty concise, but 3, 4, and 5, they all feel like the beginning of a new plot. So much feels like it's missing from between the episodes that it's clear that a lot of the story didn't make it into the show due to like monetary constraints, with having to reshoot the whole thing and having a limited amount of time to do so and a limited budget to reaccomplish that. Like, it's obvious that this is an unfinished project. They should have just given it more time if they wanted to do the whole thing over from scratch. And on top of that, they didn't really tie things back into previous episodes. Like, a lot was left open and never closed, and that's not how good storytelling works. The Tedros takeover of the house was great, but again, way too rushed. Maybe that's what they were going for, because in real life, it would probably feel that way, where all of a sudden everything around you just changed and you're left questioning how we got here. Not good for a viewer standpoint, but I get it. I think I get it, honestly. I may retract that, but again, the way this happened so quickly and the way Jocelyn just let it happen, it just made her look either so stupid or so emotionally compromised that she just can't do anything right herself. The whole shopping scene where Tedros puts the store associate in check and then fucks Jocelyn in the dressing room, and then she doesn't let him finish, so he has to finish himself. Tedros and everything he built fell apart in a single night, all because he got a little too drunk and Jocelyn invited her ex over. That was all it took to game over a plan that was rolling for years. The moment he lost control just a little bit, everything went to shit, and he ends up looking like a bitch, crying outside Jocelyn's room while she's getting fucked. He shouldn't be doing that. First of all, he shouldn't have an emotional connection to Jocelyn. The way that he's crying over her hooking up with her ex is like, oh, this is real to him. Like, he really was invested. This wasn't a plan to just get in her house anymore and expose his talent to her management. This was like, he's sad now. That's just fucking bad. That's just shitty. That's not good. And then, like I said, with so much happening between episodes, whatever, after that, Jocelyn is the badass, and people are trying to say that she was the manipulative one the whole time. No, I think she kind of just woke up a little bit, but it's a shame because we don't even get that realization. We don't even have that moment of clarity where she's like, oh my God, Tedros has been horrible all along. All of a sudden, she just knows everything about him, and we don't get that exposition. She just knows. She starts telling everybody, oh, hey, did you guys know that one of his dancers, that, like, he's a pimp, and that one of my dancers was actually one of his bitches, and she convinced me to go to his club, and he planned the whole thing to get into my house? Like, when did you learn that? We knew that, but who told you? Like, we didn't see anybody tell you this. Like, there's just so much missing from the fucking show because 5 episodes. And at the end of it all, when Jocelyn is finally free of any grasp of Tedros, she invites him to the show, gives him a backstage pass, invites him on stage, and identifies him as the love of her life as they embrace in a kiss in front of all of Los Angeles and her managerial team that paid him a fortune to get the fuck out, that dragged his name through the mud and revealed exactly who he was to the world through that article that they manipulated with Vanity Fair. And I'm sure that all of us felt the exact same way as Chaim, Destiny, and Fink in that moment. Just jaws dropped, angry, like, girl, what the fuck are you doing? After all that we did to protect you, you don't even want to protect yourself anymore? After all that, did you forget all that you've gone through? And like what they tried to do with the scene where like Tedros acknowledges the brush and he's like, is this what your mom used to beat you with? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, it's brand new. And she just stares at him. A brand new brush would have been a great symbol for moving on from the trauma of her pasts and letting that go. Tedros didn't have to be there to see that. This when they invited Tedros back, this officially turned into a fucking Tyler Perry movie. Nothing made sense at all anymore. The writing just went to shit, all for the sake of emotional compromise. To wrap things up, I just want to say that I need like a director. Maybe the Weeknd himself can speak on this. I wouldn't really care if he did or didn't. I mean, I'm happy that he did something that he wanted to do, even if it turned out this way. I'm sorry I don't like it, you know? They made it hard to enjoy by just not being a finished product. And it sucks that The Weeknd has to associate himself with such a thing. And for all of you guys who are probably wondering, like, no, I'm not getting my exo tat removed. You got clickbaited as fuck. All in all, the cinematography was fantastic. The Weeknd, as a lover of movies himself, it's already been clear that people on Reddit have made parallels to Scarface with, you know, the mansion and everything. So many shots were just so beautiful to look at. And I appreciate that the show at least gave us that, as well as so much great music. I am for sure going to listen to more of Susanna Sun. Susanna Sun, excuse me. I almost just tried to say Susanna Sun and Moses Sumney at the same time. Sumney. Moses Sumney, I mean, I enjoyed him as a character. He was a great support as one of Tedros's talents. But as an artist himself, I mean, you know, it's kind of like, Mom, can we listen to Daniel Caesar? No, honey, we got Daniel Caesar at home. Daniel Caesar at home. So in my final thoughts on The Idol, I'm afraid to say this was not good. If you're intrigued about it, then of course give it a watch. Take it with a grain of salt that you may not enjoy the story for what it is, but you can have fun with like the drama and the cinematography and the music, of course. Choreography was great as well. I do want to say Lily Rose Depp is a fantastic actress. I think that she hit this role out of the park, especially in the latter episodes. I would love to actually see her pursue music because what The Weeknd did with her on a few of his songs was phenomenal. She actually is really fucking good. I want her to make her own music. I think that was fantastic. But to wrap things up, I'm just talking way too much at this point. Cinematography, great. Music, fantastic. Plot wasn't there. The way that the show ended just proved that this was just going nowhere. All this was just a mere experience. We didn't really learn anything from it. We just enjoyed the ride. And that kind of sucks to say because I would have loved to have taken something away with this. This could have been a very, very, very well-told story. I think maybe The Weeknd and Sam Levinson should have just let the project lie where it was when it was under the helm of a female director because they were afraid that it was falling too much into the female perspective of what they were doing and then they took it over. It was too expensive to do that because it didn't come out well. And that's all the effort I'm going to put into this video. I've went on for far longer than I wanted to. I added way more points than was actually in this Reddit post. But if you enjoyed listening, I really appreciate you guys being here until the end. You can find me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Fabio Suave. I've been live every day since Thanksgiving. We play a ton of different games. We listen to music here sometimes as well. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I hope to see you next time. Bye.